You know, gaming never really shunned the influence of Space Invaders, even though it's been 43 years since we got addicted to it. I can't tell you how many games involve shooting down some stinking cattle-abducting UFOs, unidentified farting opossums, but there's more than enough to choose from. So I decided to review the one that hams itself up. This is Space Bomber, released by Psycheo in 1998. It's not an ordinary invasion by any stretch of the imagination. Space Bomber is delightfully absurd in every way possible, taking established video game setups and flipping them on their side with the satire stick. You are the President of the United States, possibly the world, and when a bunch of tight-lipped emojis demand your planet, you take it personally and blast off to destroy the entire alien armada all by yourself in your superpowered space bomber. Squaring off against Squidward Tentacles, that wascally wabbit. Who'll let the dogs out? Monkey Business. And my favorite, giant set-in-it garbage cans that'll trash you unless you're the best of the best. If anyone watching this thinks cosmic warfare became overdone and generic after years of seeing serious conflicts played out in media, then you've probably never seen steel elephants parading over Earth. Failure is not an option, because if you don't stop the aliens, they'll expose your... If you somehow manage to take your eyes off the colorful cast for a moment, you'll notice the backdrops look quite nice, being digitized from real photographs and enhanced with CGI to create solid-looking landscapes. I was only spawned in a way Psycheo used the late 90s CGI. They knew full well the technology was not fully developed yet, and they didn't have the budget to do good-looking CGI characters either. By using it as a companion for hand-drawn illustrations, they created a bunch of games with cohesive visuals that aged better than their full 3D competitors. This still looks nice today, unlike many PlayStation 1 games where people have blocky or jagged faces. Which transitions nicely to discussing the gameplay. Space Bomber is just as much fun to play as its colorful visuals would imply. This is a simplistic bullet hell game where you'll spend most of your time shooting and dodging bright orange bullets. Every explosion, loud and satisfying. It's important to distinguish that this is a bullet hell game because you have an incredibly tiny hitbox right beneath your ship's cockpit. But I'll get back to that later. Unlike most of these games, you don't have screen-clearing bombs for emergencies. Instead, you have the Claw, letting you grab enemies and items. But that's only half the fun. Once they're in your grasp, you can use them as a shield to protect yourself from incoming bullets, or launch them right back where they came from to set off an explosion. Anything else caught in the blast also explodes, which will most likely start a chain reaction if there's many enemies in a row, much like Missile Command. The more you destroy in a single blast, the more you score. It's easy to learn, but it takes weeks to master. Learning the best times to launch the aliens in each level for optimal score, learning how long the boss time limits are so you can milk as many points off of them as possible before they retreat, and which enemy types are worth grabbing versus shooting normally. Oh yes, the developers actually put thought into how thick each of the animal skins are to determine how much health they should have. That's an appropriate summarization of the gameplay. It's smarter than it looks. If that wasn't enough, you have multiple secret ships to choose from to add even more variety to your playthroughs. You have a light blue ship that fires more than 3 bullets on the screen at once, racking up insane damage per second. A gold ship that can cover most of the screen with its Raiden-inspired spread shot, and a T-block from Tetris packing a drill that'll pierce the heavens. Either that, or this is a homage to Space Invaders with its blocky graphics. This game is craptacular. Once you got good ships and good skills, the only other thing you need to serve up a juicy shooter are good stages to use them in. Which is where Shin Nakamura's traditional game design comes into play. as you'd expect out of a Nakamura game, these bullet patterns mostly rely on reaction speed and memorization, with randomization being exceedingly rare. There's one major difference between Space Bomber and his usual works though. The difficulty curve in Space Bomber is straightforward and steady, practically giving you the first 3 levels for free, and ramping up gradually until it resembles the last boss of Striker's 1945-2. I recorded the first time I played this game, and you can get all the way up to stage 4-1 before your reflexes won't cut it anymore and you have to start memorizing enemy movements. So the average first credit will last 6 minutes, which is extremely generous by arcade game standards. Not only is it fair to its players, but your progress on how far you can get without continuing is satisfying because it serves as an accurate indicator of how skilled you become at the genre. Awarding you a rank at the end of your game, depending on how far you got and how high your score was. It's as solid as a rock, with replayability written all over it. On that note, Space Bomber is on the short side, clocking in at 19 minutes to finish on average, going for quality over quantity. You will breeze through this game in no time, but you should score attack it to see how many millions you can rack up, because huge pinball numbers like those are satisfying to achieve when they take effort and time. Wanting to go back to something because you were entertained by it indicates a great game. Is Space Bomber perfect? No. I have a couple of nitpicks that could have made this game even more convenient to play, mostly related to the hitboxes. Remember what I said about Space Bomber being a bullet hell game? The game could have made it more obvious that you have tiny hitboxes. It doesn't even look all that bullet hellish until you reach Stage 2, Part 4. Many newer shooters make the location of your hitbox more obvious to eliminate guesswork on what can and can't kill you. I bet some people would be less intimidated by the later stages if that was the case. Lastly, I'm surprised that Space Bomber doesn't uphold the Psycho tradition of having a nearly impossible second loop after you complete the game once. These second loops added months of playtime to every game that had them, pushing every pattern to the limits of being humanly possible. However, I understand it takes months of testing to ensure they're doable in the first place. So, better well tested and quality assured than unwinnable. But you'll quickly forget about any gripes the moment you pick up the controller for good old-fashioned over-the-top fun. All in all, I give Space Bomber an A, a worthy grade for this bombshell of a game. Before I sign off, I should mention Space Bomber's release status. The company that owns the rights to Psycho's catalog, City Connection, have done a great job making these games available on PC and Nintendo Switch. However, Space Bomber is nowhere to be found, and I'm pretty sure the Tetris block is to blame. The Tetris company owns the blocky Tetramino design used in this game, so re-releasing Space Bomber as it is opens the door for City Connection to be sued. It would have to be removed from the game entirely, and that's lame, because applying Tetris block blasting up aliens is hilarious. If I owned Tetris, I'd personally get a huge laugh out of this and give permission for this to stay the way it is. It's obviously not ripping off everyone's favorite Russian puzzle game, but I have no say, so Space Bomber is likely going to stay in emulator limbo until the ROM is hacked. Lawyers ruin everything,